Camden.
There's this moment in 2012 where Robert Pattinson is sitting in an interview talking about the end of Twilight. The interviewer asks where he sees himself in 10 years, and Pattinson doesn't really answer. He just kind of shrugs and says he hopes he'll have developed as a human being, which is a perfectly reasonable thing to say, except that he's 22 years old, worth millions, and has just spent 5 years as the face of one of the biggest franchises in cinema history. This should be the beginning of a very predictable career trajectory. Instead, it's the beginning of one of the strangest and most deliberate career reinventions in modern Hollywood. Because here's the thing about Pattinson after Twilight. He doesn't want any of it. Not the fame, not the paparazzi, not the screaming fans. And he talks about people waiting outside his house and losing his mind. He says he's prone to paranoia. He admits he doesn't even like having his photo taken, which is a problem when you're supposed to be a movie star. And when someone suggests that making a lot of money is the price you pay for all this, he pushes back hard. He says franchises are like Burger King or Subway. They're not art. They trap you. And for someone who wants to be any kind of artist, being trapped is the worst thing that can happen. So when Twilight ends, Pattinson faces a choice. He could do what most actors in his position do. Take the big paychecks. Do star vehicles. Become the next action hero or romantic lead, but he doesn't. Instead, he calls up David Cronenberg and says he wants to do Cosmopolis. He admits he doesn't know what the movie's about. He doesn't know why Cronenberg offered it to him. He just knows he doesn't want to follow the expected path. And Cronenberg casts him as this obscenely wealthy asset manager who intentionally unravels his own life. It's weird and cerebral and completely uncommercial. The film premieres at Cannes. It doesn't go well. Critics are skeptical. Some people think Pattinson isn't strong enough to carry it. The mainstream audience has no idea what to do with it. And most actors at this point would course correct. They'd go back to safer choices, but Pattinson loves the film. He's seen it multiple times. He thinks it's one of his favorite things he's ever done, which tells you everything about where his head is at. He's not trying to please an audience. He's not chasing commercial success. He's chasing something harder to define. Over the next few years, he takes a series of indie films that almost no one sees. He works with directors like the Safdie brothers, who at this point are relatively unknown. And the Safdie brothers' story is perfect because it shows how impulsive and instinct-driven Pattinson actually is. He sees one photograph from their film Heaven Knows What on a film website. Just one image. And he sends them what he later describes as an obsessive fan letter. He hasn't seen their work. He just knows, somehow, that he wants to work with them. They meet at a hotel in LA. He tells them he wants to do whatever they're doing next. And Josh Safdie basically calls his bluff. He says, "Do you mean that? Because I'll have a script in 6 weeks." That script becomes Good Time. It's shot guerrilla style on the streets of New York. Pattinson plays a low-level criminal with bleached hair who robs a bank with his hearing-impaired brother, and then spends the entire film trying to fix the mess. It's raw and chaotic, and completely unrecognizable from anything he's done before. And he's terrified the whole time that paparazzi will find the shoot and ruin it. Because once photographers show up, the crowd starts watching. Then people start recognizing him. And the whole illusion falls apart, but somehow they pull it off. They shoot an entire movie on the streets of New York, and not a single person takes a cell phone picture. Good Time premieres at Cannes. It gets a 6-minute standing ovation. Critics rave about it. This is the film, they say, where Pattinson proves he's a real actor, where he sheds the celebrity and shows his range. But here's what's interesting. Some critics push back on that narrative. They say Pattinson has always been great. The surprise isn't that he's good in Good Time. The surprise is that the film itself is so strong. And that distinction matters. Because it suggests that Pattinson didn't suddenly become talented. He was always talented. The world just couldn't see it through the Twilight noise. Even after Good Time, though, the mainstream audience isn't convinced. People still see him as the Twilight guy. Reporters ask if he's deliberately keeping distance from mainstream films. And Pattinson says, no, not really. He just likes the freedom that comes with lower budgets. When there aren't as many investors, no one panics when you do something crazy on set. He's not following some grand career strategy. He's just making choices based on instinct and fear. But he looks for things that scare him, things that feel out of reach. And if there's a gap in the market, he tries to fill it. But then something unexpected happens. Matt Reeves is casting Batman, and Reeves has seen Good Time. He thinks Pattinson has this intensity, this sadness, that could work for a different kind of Batman. So when Pattinson meets with producer Dylan Clark about something unrelated, he casually asks what's going on with Batman. And he sees a flicker of recognition, an opening. So he keeps pushing. Eventually he meets Reeves, and Reeves describes this version of Batman as tragic. Almost like Kurt Cobain, someone who tries to stay away from people, and Pattinson relates to that immediately. The backlash is instant. Petitions circulate online demanding Warner Brothers drop him. People can't get past Twilight. They say the Twilight guy can't be Batman, and Pattinson is terrified. He admits he's that annoying combination of being very impulsive and then very hesitant afterward. He doesn't know what audiences want. He can't predict how they'll respond. But he also knows this is different from Twilight. He's older now. He can handle the pressure better. And the film itself feels edgy in a way that fits where he wants his life to go. When the Batman comes out, it works. Critics call him one of the best Batmans ever put on screen. Audiences respond. The film succeeds both critically and commercially. And suddenly, all those years in the indie wilderness make sense. Because the Batman that Pattinson plays isn't a traditional superhero, he's broken and uncertain and doesn't know if what he's doing will make a difference. He's a character shaped by failure and fear. And Pattinson can play that because he spent years making films about exactly those things. There's this through line in his career that only becomes obvious in retrospect. After Twilight, he could have chased bigger and bigger commercial projects. He could have become a generic action star or romantic lead. Instead, he spent years almost actively trying to disappear, working with unknown directors, playing characters no one expected him to play. And in doing that, he built credibility. Not with the masses, but with the people who actually make films. Directors started seeking him out because they knew he'd commit. He'd take risks. He wouldn't play it safe. And now he's in this strange position where he can do both. He's signed for a Batman trilogy, but he's also still doing weird indie films. He talks about how lucky he feels, how the fact that he's still getting jobs blows his mind every day. There's not a single element of him that's jaded about it. And that's rare. Most actors who go through what he went through, the sudden fame, the backlash, the years of being underestimated, they come out bitter. But Pattinson seems genuinely grateful. Maybe because he never wanted the fame in the first place. He just wanted to do interesting work. There's a bigger lesson here about how careers actually work in Hollywood. The conventional wisdom is that you use franchise success to launch a star career. You do the big films, make the big money, become a household name. And for some people, that works. But for others, franchise fame becomes a cage. Audiences can't see past the role that made you famous. And if you try to break out too quickly, you fail. Pattinson's strategy, whether intentional or not, was to wait. To spend years rebuilding his identity in small films where the stakes were lower. And by the time he came back to blockbusters, he was a different actor. Someone with range and credibility. It's also a story about patience. Pattinson was 22 when Twilight ended. He's in his late 30s now. That's more than a decade of steady, unglamorous work. Of taking films that didn't make money, of being dismissed by people who only knew him from one role, but he stuck with it. And the industry eventually caught up. Directors like the Safdie brothers and Matt Reeves saw what he was capable of, and they gave him opportunities that redefined his career. The irony is that Pattinson's path only worked because he was willing to risk everything. If he'd played it safe, if he'd done the expected star vehicles, he probably would have faded into obscurity. Because audiences would have gotten bored. The industry would have moved on. But by doing the opposite, by embracing risk and uncertainty, he created something more durable, a career that isn't dependent on any one franchise or any one audience. He's proven he can do prestige indie films and massive blockbusters. And that versatility is rare. Looking at where he is now, it's clear the journey was worth it. He's financially secure, critically respected, and he's working on projects he actually cares about. He talks about how acting has the potential to completely change your life every single time. And for him, that's been true. Not because of the fame or the money, but because each role has pushed him somewhere new, forced him to grow. And that's what he wanted back when Twilight ended. Not to be a star, just to develop as a human being. So, if you're looking for a formula for how to navigate sudden fame and franchise success, Pattinson's story probably isn't it. Because it required a lot of risk and a lot of luck. But it does show that there's more than one path, that you don't have to follow the expected trajectory. And that sometimes, the best thing you can do for your career is to ignore what everyone thinks you should do and just chase the work that scares you. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Robert Pattinson's career, hit that subscribe button. There's more where this came from.